Okay, welcome everyone to the Construct Innovate webinar series on modern methods of construction. This week the focus is on housing again, but in particular is on the perspective from light gauge steel modern methods of construction manufacturers and how they are supporting the Housing for All, which is the government's plan for 2030. It's a multi-annual, multi-billion euro plan to improve Ireland's housing system and to deliver more houses at times for people with different housing needs. My name is Jamie Goggins. I'm co-director of Construct Innovate, and Construct Innovate is Ireland's National Research Centre for Construction Technology and Innovation in there. We're going to have three speakers. We're delighted to have three leading companies in this area, and in particular, very senior people in those companies in there. So Eoin Waldron, who's the General Manager of Castle Modular, who's going to first speak about 3D volumetric offsite manufactured homes. Then Kevin Hickey, who's the design manager at Modern Homes Ireland, who will talk about the innovations at Modern Homes Ireland. And then Paddy Mahon, who's head of design and engineering in Frame Space Solutions. And he's going to talk about going from 2D to 3D light gauge steel solutions. So we'll have each of the presentations, about 15 minutes each, and then we'll take the questions and answers at the end. So please post into the Q&A. You'll see the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Please post any questions that you have in there, and we'll come to those at the very end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Eoin. So Eoin Waldron for the first presentation. Over to you, Eoin. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. Just get my video doesn't seem to be working. So just to share my screen. So hopefully you can all see that there. And so good afternoon, everybody. And my name is Eoin Waldron, GM of Castle Modular. We are a 3D volumetric manufacturer based in the west of Ireland. Today, I'm going to be talking about thinking outside the module. So we will touch briefly on the Castle Group, what we do, kind of show our journey from a fit-out company through to a 3D volumetric manufacturer. We'll discuss some of the market pipeline challenges and how companies like ourselves and the other speakers have to stay agile within that market. We'll do a bit of a dive into the OPW Ukrainian refugee modular accommodation project, which is single-story and two-story housing. And then some key wins for that project and where that brings us next. In other terms, what's the most important things to take from that project? So I'll talk mainly around the non-technical aspects, but more innovation around how the contract was set up and how the companies work together within that scheme. So Castle Group, we are 25 years in business, 350 employees. We have 5 divisions: modular, fit out, academy, FM, and the seals and partitions division. So turnover of 60 million across all businesses. And our factory here runs on a 165 kilowatt solar PV system. So in 2022, 95% of our power came from the grid, or came from the solar panels on our roof. And in 2023, we were at about 75% because we'd ramped up and opened a second factory. So we're a safety-first company, quality always, 0 delays, and we utilize a digital turnover. So as I touched on already, within the group, we have the 2 main sectors are the off-site modular and the on-site fit-out business. In some cases, we work hand in hand on the one project where we'll do the modular installation. We'll do also the fit out, high bay walls, and also the glazed partitions, any of that fit out elements, walls, floors, doors, etc., etc. So we're ISO accredited for 9001, 45001, 14001, and we're at the very final stages of our NSAI agreement for a fully volumetric system which can be built 10 floors high, with concrete floors and 90-minute fire rated walls. So in terms of our journey, and I'll come back to why this is important shortly, but the we kind of ran through organic diversification and growth. So the seals and partitions, our fit out division, started in 99. In 2016, as a result of seeing issues in the labor in the market in terms of the skill set, in terms of what was coming through from the apprenticeship ranks, we developed the Castle Sealants Training Academy, as you see in the picture in the background. So we took people from the live register, ran them through a training scheme in-house, where they were given GRETB qualifications up to NVQ level 5, and that worked quite well until, I suppose, COVID. It started to become more problematic to get people into that scheme. So as a result of, I suppose, frustration seen on many different projects, we figured out there was a better way to do things. Hence, we started into the bathroom pod sector of the business. That has been running since 2018, and it's still running. In 2020, we started down the road of the 3D volumetric, mainly in the pharma, data center, and some commercial projects. And then since 2022, we've moved into the residential sector. So the market pipeline challenges I referred to earlier, as a modular manufacturer or a 3D volumetric manufacturer in Ireland, it can be quite difficult to manage your pipeline throughout the different projects, the different products that you have, and the different sources of that pipeline. So most of us manufacturers in Ireland tend to wear a couple of different hats in terms of our offerings and in terms of where we source our pipeline from. Some will have supply contracts directly with main contractors or directly with clients. Other have a more vertically integrated system, such as the likes of the big master developers like Glenveagh that also do self-delivery as well. So yesterday we had a visit to their factory where they are manufacturing their own 2D panelized systems that they feed their own projects with. Not everyone has the luxury of generating their own pipeline like that. So some of us then have to rely on export. So most of the manufacturers in the country then will also have a diversity of product where they will play around in at least 2, if not 3 of the sectors listed here below, where they will 3DV, and these are the residential or the quite successful schools framework that has been running. Data centers, pharma are big users of 3D volumetric. And then we also have companies who also, as I said, similar to FrameSpace, will have 3D volumetric plus 2D panelized. Ourselves, we have the 3D volumetric plus bathroom pods. And then you have some of the smaller one-off resi volumetric manufacturers, and also the bigger entities that are supplying site offices, welfare. So most of us will have to juggle pipeline between those elements in order to keep our factory doors open and keep the lights on. So that can be quite challenging. In terms of the OPW scheme, a lot of you probably would have heard of this. This was an emergency accommodation scheme where we had single and 2-story offerings. So the employer in this scheme was the Office of Public Works. Main contractor was John Sisk, and Cody's then were the architects. MEP consultants were EDC and DBFL. Now below that, we had 8 or 9 manufacturers had tendered competitively to Sisk. There was 5 companies that were successful in that. Now one manufacturer fell away. They ran into financial difficulty, and I'll come back to this in a while. But what happened in that case was, as they fell away, their capacity or their units were spread across the other 4 manufacturers, which showed that system of having multiple manufacturers on the one scheme worked quite well, because there was no blip in the delivery. The other companies were offered extra modules, and we all moved on together. So we all worked under the Sisk subcontract, sitting under an EN4 contract. There was a fixed price for the manufacture, install, and commission of the modules, and there was roughly 700 units split between all of the manufacturers. And the manufacturers ourselves, we were responsible for the structural design, with the architectural and M&E sitting below the company's name there. So this is just some sample drawings. These were the 2-bed semi-detached units. Quite a simple design. They were put together in a semi-detached format. They're A2 rated, apart from the lack of solar panels. So if they had the solar panels, they would have achieved A2. Mechanical air circulation, electric heating, and fully finished internally. And they left the factory in a plug and play scenario. So that's just some aerial shots of the project itself. So ourselves as Castle, we were contracted to do 182 of these homes of the 700. They're fully BCAR compliant with a 21-day manufacturing period, and we're producing between 8 and 10 modules per week. All of the party wall is 60-minute fire rated to meet the technical guidance documents, and they're all acoustically tested also. That's just some internal shots and the external shots of the modules in their finished state. Up next then was the 3-bed modular home, also as part of the same scheme. So you see the ground floor images on the left. As you go in the entrance hall, you have the sitting room dining area on the right-hand side, the utility and bathroom then in the left-hand side module. As you can see, there's 2 different size modules on the ground floor, and then 2 modules on the upper floor of a corresponding size as well, with 3 bedrooms then on the upper floor. These were put together in a 6-unit terrace. So that's 24 modules making up the 6 houses within that terrace. So they were compliant with all the social affordable requirements in terms of size guidelines, etc. 1,250 square feet. And for these, we had a full LGS structure, so there was no hot roll steel at all in them. And 3-bed terrace and A2 rated with a heat pump and 4 modules per house, as I mentioned. Now, the thing to note is that these left the factory with a PMV of 90%. So that's a pre-manufactured value of 90%. So that means that 90% of the works were completed in the factory. So you see some pictures here. The bottom right shows the LGS structure with the insulation going in. The center picture shows the brick slip and the render being applied to the units in the factory. The top right, you can see the kitchen units installed, timber frame installed, and they were all taken in the factory. And the top right as well, you can see the radiator hanging on the wall also, all fully plumbed with some connection points module to module, which were completed on site. Then on the left-hand side, you see a trial installation that we did in our factory, and the units being wrapped before being shipped. So the next photo was taken just last week. So we delivered the first module on 11th of January. And by the end of this week, which is the 2nd of Feb, we will be out of all 6 units. So that means everything in a turnkey situation in all of the 6 units. So that's 3 weeks on site, covering from delivery to us walking out the door. So these are photos which were taken a couple of days ago, last Friday actually, sorry, which show the actual unit on site, mocked up for a visit today for the Department of Housing. So as you can see, sizable kitchen island, and nice sized bedrooms as well. So I suppose what are the key wins, and I suppose in an effort to think outside the module, we can all talk about the technical innovation and the 3D modeling and the installation requirements of them. But for me, the key wins on this scheme were sat outside of the actual the technical aspects of the build, and it was more around how the companies work together and more around how the information was shared. So first thing for me was the shared efforts on design. So ourselves, Framespace, Vision Built, and MHI worked with CISC and in a very open and collaborative manner. So we all worked together on the design. We all ran design workshops on an almost daily basis to get through the design and make sure that everything was across fire, vapor control, all of the real key touch points for these modules. There was group procurement then carried out by CISC, where they procured the windows, they procured the cladding panels, and some of the other key elements. They agreed rates with the main suppliers, and then pushed them out to each of us as the manufacturers then to go and approach those companies and work with them at the agreed rates. So we had wide experience across the initial 5 manufacturers, whittled down to 4, as we said, some coming from a 2D background, some from 3D, some from bathroom pods, and with a lot of main contractor experience as well, also within the companies. It was very open and transparent communication. The other two speakers today will probably remember the initial meetings that we had. It was very much aware to everybody that for this to work, we all needed to work together. We all needed to be open, transparent, help each other. And because if this large modular scheme failed, we were all going to fail as businesses. So we all had skin in the game in terms of what we felt this project was going to do for not just emergency accommodation, but for housing in general in Ireland. So we all did cross-factory visits where we went to see MHI, we went to see Vision Built and Framespace, and for example, they came down to see our factory as well, just to see if there was any small items we could pick up or they could pick up and help each other, you know, improve the product. There's enough work out there for everybody. We just need to make sure that the product is as good as we could get it. So there was also the shared capacity. You know, I touched on this earlier. When that other company dropped out of the scheme, it was very possible for all of us to step up and take another 20 modules each and move the project on. Early days when we went into the 3D volumetric market prior to this scheme being implemented, a big concern for a lot of clients we met was, well, what happens if Castle Group run into trouble? What happens if Castle Group, you know, factory has to close down for XYZ reasons? That client would then be left with a load of modules in our factory or a job. So by sharing capacity, we're also reducing risk, which is on the next slide. So that risk was spread across all the 5 manufacturers, and it worked very well, as was proven there in the flesh. So that drop in capacity was taken up by the others. We also provided each other, the other companies, a big assistance on material shortages. So if we ran out of material, it was quite easy for us to pick up the phone to one of the other manufacturers and say, guys, have you got enough shower trays? How are you on cladding panels? Any chance we can borrow a few for a month or for 2 weeks or whatever it is? And that worked quite well in ensuring that everybody was delivering and hitting our dates on program. And again, there was an overall benefit to the project for that. We also shared the use of on-site plant, craneage, MUPs, etc. were all shared between us. So once one crane rolled in on a Monday, we would have multiple manufacturers delivering throughout that week. We might be in on a Monday, Tuesday, Framespace in on a Wednesday, and so on throughout the week. And that really helped the logistics on site, speeded things up and reduced the prelims then for the main contractor also. We also shared any continuous improvement. So if there was lessons learned we had or that our QC team was picking up, we would share them with the others as well, just to make sure that there was no issues, because if it started to go wrong for one manufacturer, everybody would be tainted with the same brush and the scheme would be tainted with the same brush. So that worked very well, and the offerings continually improved throughout the project. So where next? For manufacturers like ourselves, we do see some large-scale 2D factories for vertically integrated developers only. We don't see, for now, the medium-scale factories scaling up to big super factories like we've seen in the UK of late. So we see the medium-scale factories still wearing 2 hats, be it bathroom pods and volumetric, or 2D and volumetric. And we need to do that in order to keep our doors open until we can get the pipeline a lot more solid and a lot more consistent. We probably see a lot of the smaller companies who are currently in the garden room space or currently on the school space diversifying into the residential space as the schemes start to grow. But we'd like to also see more collaboration and also that sharing of capacity system that worked very well on the OPW scheme. It would be fantastic to see that moving into the housing market with social and affordable and feeding the approved housing bodies. So in terms of government contracts, we don't see the government pushing on with any more of the Ukrainian schemes similar to what has been done. We see them moving more into more, as was publicized recently last weekend in the papers. We're going to go with emergency accommodation in 6 large centres throughout the country. However, with regard to residential specifically, there is a lot of effort being put in by local authorities, by the Department of Housing, and by entities such as MMC Ireland and CIF in trying to get standardized on typologies, so that manufacturers like ourselves can, really tighten up on our pricing around 3, 4, 5, 6 different strict types of houses, and then push them out into the local authorities. And we can then utilize the multi-manufacturer schemes under main contractors, under local authorities, or under the approved housing bodies. And again, capitalize on that process that was done by the OPW for the scheme that we're talking about. And in terms of the private market is really going to be driven by a few things. One being skills shortage, two being carbon stats, and however, we see the private market for now continuing in the short term, continuing with majority of the market in panelized 2D. However, they will start employing 3D volumetric, will start to be utilized on smaller sites initially, where quicker turnover and less prelims are required, and where they need to get that asset into use quicker. So on smaller schemes with 50 to 75 houses, where the developer doesn't want to put a big team on it, they're quite short on resources, so they can offsite a lot of that prelim down to manufacturers, split it between 2 or 3 manufacturers. We each do 20, 25, 50 houses each, and that's where you start to really see the benefit for modular manufacturers and for getting 3D volumetric use up in the general market. So that's it for myself. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time there, Jamie.
Brilliant, grand. Thanks, Owen. Perfect. In there, that's fantastic. Look, brilliant to hear about the sharing of knowledge, efforts, and resources, like to the benefit of everyone. If you roll back the clock before that, people said, "No way, they won't collaborate. That won't happen." It won't happen. And it's proven that when people do work with openness, transparency, and effort together, that you can have a lot of success, and like all the boats rise together, as to say. It's great. We'll be coming back to more questions and answers afterwards, but without further ado, I might hand over to Kevin to go next. Paddy Mahon is the head of design and engineering at Framespace, and he's going to talk about from Framespace from 2D to 3D like HC. Then hopefully we'll get Kevin back before the end as well. Okay, so over to you, Paddy.
Did you see my screen, Jamie?
Yeah. Just pulled into slideshow.
Yeah.
All
right. Hi, my name is Paddy Mahon. I'm head of design and engineering with Framespace Solutions. This presentation's on 2D to 3D light-gauge steel solutions. What we're going to cover is just a brief introduction of the company and what we do. We'll touch on design, talk about some of the testing and analysis we've carried out in the systems, talk about system certification, and then some case study projects that we've carried out in the past or delivered. So just about us, Framespace Solutions were set up in 2016. We're based in Longford Town, County Longford. We design and manufacture light-gauge steel building systems for the residential and commercial sectors in Ireland in 2D and 3D solutions. So what we do, we have 2 main offerings, like Owen touched on, there's a bit of diversity to the different manufacturers' offerings. So we do a 2D panelized system, and that's where we started out. We do a closed panel system assembled in the factory with an enclosed LGS structure, insulation fitted, and the sheathing layers with the external finishes fitted here as much as possible as well, with windows and doors installed in the external wall panels and things like that. Our other offering would be 3D volumetric, so that'd be in line with category 1 of the MMC guidance. The modules would be that we would provide would have a minimum of weather-tight structure with or without external finishes, so it just depends on the external finishes required, and the internal finishes and internal fit out would be completed off-site here in the factory. So just to give you an overview on the differences between 2D and 3D, with the 2D closed panel, your PMV or your pre-manufactured value will be somewhere between 30 and 40%. The fit out would be completed on site. It's a more flexible solution in some ways because it can be incorporated into a project at a later stage of the design process. You'd get cost and program certainty when it comes to the frame and facade. So when it comes to the building envelope, the fit out is still completed on site though. With the 3D, you'd have a pre-manufactured value of plus 90%. Fit out is completed off-site here in the factory. Early engagement and design consideration is important. It's very hard to shoehorn a 3D solution into a design if it hasn't been considered. And it probably wouldn't be the most cost effective, but if it is considered, you know, the efficiencies are huge. Cost and program certainty. So there's a high level of cost and program certainty with the only site activities really the civils and substructure. So just to touch on the design and build workflows that we have. So there's a high level of design coordination carried out for both solutions, with, you know, architectural models, steel models, mechanical, electrical models all carried out, merged, coordinated. So that process continues with like structural calcs and thermal aspects all fed into that. We operate with fully digital workflows, so we have a Autodesk Construction Cloud as our common data environment for our design and build processes. There's deep analysis and control over all aspects of manufacturing operations, and we have 100% traceability of all the profiles manufactured in our plant. So then just to touch on some of the testing and analysis that we have carried out on our system. So say just looking at, and again, these would be applicable to say Eoin and Kevin as well. I know all manufacturers jump through the same hoops, and you know, they have the same analysis or testing or variables of it carried out. So just looking at the structural aspect of it, all elements of the structure are designed for project specific conditions such as location, building height and elevation. The designs are designed and certified by a competent qualified structural engineer, and all LGS and hot rolled steel elements are modeled in-house using 3D steel detailing softwares, such as Vertex for the light gauge steel and Tekla for the hot rolled steel structures. From a fire perspective, we have a full suite of fire testing carried out on our system. So I think it's between 15 and 20 tests carried out to date. All loaded tests carried out on external wall buildups, compartment walls, compartment floors, load-bearing internal walls. And these would cover 30, 60 and 90-minute fire resisting requirements. So that will all depend on building heights and your fire certs for specific projects. CWCT testing. So this is like an onerous test carried out on the external wall buildup. So it tests for air permeability, dynamic water resistance. So you can see in the video on the left, the spray bar frame with a wind engine forcing the water against the external wall with 2 windows fitted as well. So it tests the detailing around your windows, your sills, and just the interfaces between the different finishes. There was quite onerous wind loads applied in. So there's a serviceability wind load and a safety wind load. And then at the end, there's a hard and soft body impact test carried out. So yeah, we successfully passed that test last year. The next part is in acoustic testing. So this be carried out on all projects anyway, but in the initial development of our system, we would have carried out a suite of acoustic lab tests just to try and see what the different build-ups would achieve. And, you know, we have different solutions for that as well. And that all ties in with our fire testing as well. So in developing a system, you know, you're trying to make sure that all parts are talking to each other and they all lead to compliance across all the different parts of the regulations. Fabric performance, so part L. So we have a full suite of thermal models completed on the 2D and 3D junctions. There's big efficiencies to be gained here in terms of particle calcs, where you can adjust your thermal bridging factor based on these thermal models. So you could get efficiencies elsewhere in terms of the types of heat pumps or your U values once you work through the calculations with the thermal models. We've carried out hydrothermal analysis with the WFI software. So this has been carried out on the floor, wall and roof buildups. And we'd be achieving an average air tightness of 2 meters cubed per hour per meter squared across all our projects. We've got down to passive house standard in terms of air tightness previously. So it all depends on the project specific requirements around that. Just talking about certification. So we hold our CE Eoin 1090 certificate for execution class 2. We have our NSCI agreement cert for buildings up to 20 meters to the top floor or 6 stories. We have a UL certification for the external wall build-up, so that the CWCT test was carried out as part of that certification. And we have ISO 9001 for our quality management systems. I'll just look at some case study projects as well. So just showing the different some 3D and 2D projects. So just Eoin touched on the URMH modular housing project completed with CISC for CISC and the OPW. As Eoin touched on, it was a very collaborative approach between 5 different manufacturers, which is, probably breaking new ground from that perspective, but it has been really successful. And just looking at the pictures, even it's come out very well. You can see, just looking at some other pictures, the internal fit out in the top left hand corner. So the modules are completed offsite, with just the furniture being fitted, like the loose furniture being fitted on site or being brought in, so it wouldn't get damaged on the way to site. And you can see in the center picture, one module is being lifted in, so the cladding was fully finished off site as well. The 2-story modular project. So these 2-story houses are made up of 4 modules per house. This is ongoing on site at the moment. You can see in the bottom right hand corner the level of finish that was completed on the outside in the factory, and the top left shows the kitchen fitted and the kitchen island, flooring, painting, all mechanical and electrical is all finished off site. And the bottom left shows them wrapped, ready for transport to site. Case study 2. So this is an example of a 2D project, multi-story, multi-occupancy. So it was 15 apartments across 4 floors in Dublin. It was a 2D job, and we were responsible for the frame and facade, or providing an airtight, weathertight building envelope with the external finishes complete, and with bathroom pods as well. So you can see the bathroom pods covered in polythene there temporarily. So the top right hand corner, you can see what a 2D panel looks like when it's leaving the factory. So external brick slip finished, window fitted, external insulation, light gauge steel frame. The internal fit out yet to be completed on site. And then the top left, you can see what it looks like internally when the panels are landed. Bottom left is just a view of the outside. So the scaffold would be brought up as we were going up with the install. And bottom left is the finished product from the outside. Case study 3 is Riverside Manor in Kilcullen. So on this project, we completed 78 units. It was a mix of housing, apartments, and duplex units. We did turnkey design and build on this project, so we acted as the main contractor as well. This was completed as a 2D job in the factory with 3D volumetric roof sections, panels complete with brick slip and windows fitted off-site. All the gardens and the hard landscaping, as much as possible, was completed around the houses ahead of the units being delivered to site. And what's a bit unique about this project as well was that there was no masonry or block work used. So The foundation design or foundation solution was an insulated core raft solution. So very quick, easy to install. So they were installed ahead of the units going to site, and it works very well thermally with nearly like a passive house detail, all externally insulated. The central unit, or sorry, the top picture there, you can see the volumetric roof unit being landed. So that'd be complete with roof felt and battens landed. So as soon as you land in the roof sections, you have a weather tight structure where internal fit out can begin while, say, the roofer is getting lined up to complete his works. So the felt to be just lapped and taped, and then the roofer come in and counterbat and slate on site. And the other 3 pictures are just showing the finished product, so of all the units. Case study 4, which was Drumhearney Woods Holiday Village. So this is in Leitrim Village, County Leitrim. Very unique job in that the client didn't want to bring any concrete into the forest where these units were being constructed. So we did a turnkey with turnkey. This is a turnkey project for us. So we completed 2D, and we developed a screw pile solution. So worked with Screw Pile Ireland, and they installed helical screw piles, and then we landed floor panels in and built the houses up off that with 2D panels. The walls and roofs on this were predominantly completed off-site with just infills and flashings completing the cladding, just because of the location, and they didn't want hard standing or too much infrastructure around the units within the forest, trying to maintain that environment. So very unique project. Looking at the finished product, you can see it came out very well. The center picture there just shows the cedar cladding used and the breather membrane all being installed in the factory off-site. The top left is the A-frame units, which were very interesting, very different style of building that we got to design. So that was good fun and interesting. The bottom left shows the internal finishes that were completed on it. So they were just some examples. I'd like to thank Construction Innovate for having me, and say well done to Eoin as well on his presentation. I'll take questions after. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paddy. It's great. Lovely to see, and then great to see you stepping through the different testing that was required to be able to get products to site. So that's the end thing that we see. We see them on site, but there's a long road before that to make sure that they're fit for purpose and that they pass all the rigid testing that. So we've got Kevin Hickey back. So Kevin, hopefully you can hear us. So we'll if you can share your screen again, Kevin, and so Kevin will talk about innovations at MHI.
Yeah, okay, so hopefully now with all the glitches gone, hopefully.
Perfect, yeah.
You see my screen, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Okay, so look, introduction myself, I'm Kevin Hickey, design manager with MHI BAM Ireland. As I said before, MHI, we're based in Ballyjames Duff in County Cavan. We're a 20,000 square meter facility, which is kind of needed for volumetric solutions during to the size of the product that comes out at the end. We've local supply force, local labour, and also local subcontractors, and also local suppliers in the area, which helps the sustainability side of things. Typically, when we complete modules and products in the factory, they're 80% complete, but as Eoin has gone to earlier there, we can go up to 90-95% once we understand the facade solutions and the innovative ways we can facade buildings going forward. It'll stay at that level. Basically, timeline of MHI, we were established in 2016. So during that time, in the first year, certified with EN 1090, making sure that all our structural frames and everything were compliant. And in that year, we got our NSAI certificate for 6 stories with LGS. So basically, that went through rigorous testing with the NSAI, which made sure that our architectural detailing, our structural detailing, our thermal analysis, our acoustics and everything was all closed off in that time. We've around 30 different fire tests at this moment in time. going from 30, 60, 90 minutes through compartment floors, internal walls, party walls, external walls. So it kind of covers a fair bit of stuff. As you can see then from the infographic, like we've quite a good few projects done, and we always try and showcase to people that they have an understanding of modular construction is kind of different to what we see it. We see it as a finished product at the end with like a typical house. So you could drive down any street in Ireland and not see the difference between modular and on-site. So 2017, we would have done projects like Kellogg's Grove, Milltown Ashbourne, and then in 2018, we would have done Rahillian, Daneswood Place in Glasnevin in Dublin, Gorey Hill in Wexford, Simple Woods, and 2019, Schoolhouse Lane, Simple Woods, the Gallops in Cavan. In 2019, BAM, we came over from BAM because we seen that we were working on a couple of bids with MHI, and we seen that it was a very innovative solution to offsite construction and sustainability. In 2020, you can see there, we would have done Isla Bridge Apartments, Boris Road in Portlaoise. In the Glenroyal Hotel, we would have put another floor on the building. And in 21, we would have done Abbey Street, the Gallops, Latera and Galway, and Drimna apartment block, as you can see there in the bottom left. Since then, we've done bathroom pods for BAM in Newmarket Square, Green Acres, and for another contractor there on Abbey Street. As Eoin said earlier, we're all involved in the Ukrainian modular housing. I'd have to echo what Eoin has been saying all along. The main kind of taken we got from it was the relationships we built with the other manufacturers and how open we all were to detailing, and we're all in the same place that we want to progress on modular construction in Ireland. To date, just the kind of numbers wise with MHI, we've around 950 residential units built, which is approximately 4,000 modules gone through the factory. We've 1,500 bathroom pods done. We've 23 projects finished over the last 7 years. Probably one of the main aspects why BAM we got involved with MHI was the sustainability benefits of LGS and offsite construction. The resource efficiency is probably one thing. We utilize steel, which is highly recyclable material. The using recycled steel, it reduces demand for virgin resources and minimize environmental impact. It's got a high strength to weight ratio for lighter structural elements, which reduces overall material consumption. Like we've seen in some projects that you can see that because of the lightweight structure, we can bring down foundation sizing by around 70%. Energy efficiency is another thing. We've said buildings constructed, the high levels of energy efficiency. It allows for efficient insulation, and reduces thermal bridging and heat loss in the buildings, which as a result, it's less energy in heating and cooling for the building. Reduce waste. This is kind of we've seen there on site that ones that went to site in especially the Ukrainian job with their 95% complete, there was no waste on site, which was a massive impact on that. Durability and longevity. The LGS, as we find, like it's resistant to pests and mold and rot, and it's got a longer lifespan compared to traditional timber frame structures. Its durability reduces the need for frequent maintenance, repairs, and replacement, and ultimately reducing the environmental impact associated with building maintenance activities. The water conservation is another aspect. Steel frame and LGS, it doesn't require water for production, for rolling off the frames and stuff in the factory, which is also going to help to preserve water. Indoor air quality is another thing. The LGS, it doesn't emit any VOCs and any other harmful substances. Basically, it's important for occupant health and well-being, particularly in residential and commercial spaces. Adaptability and reusability is a massive plus for LGS. Allows greater flexibility, adaptability in build design, facilitating future renovations, expansions, and adaptive reuse of structures. What we can do, and we've seen with the Ukrainian, it can be disassembled, reused, and recycled, and re-established in a different location. Sorry, just jumped ahead one there. I suppose a big thing for us is our NSAI certificate with the 3D volumetric. We're in 2019, we went up to 10 stories with a hot rolled steel option. That's up to 30 meters. There's a lot of testing, detailing, reviewing that make sure that you're compliant with it. However, though, the benefits really outweigh all the work that has to be put into it. And it's what I see as a main turning point in trying to get MMC projects off the ground in Ireland. Firstly, the first benefit is compliant with the Irish building regulations. It just ensures that the 3D volumetric offsite method complies with Irish building regulations and standards. It verifies that the system that we have is basically aligned with structural, fire safety, thermal performance, and durability requirements by the Irish building regulations. Recognition and acceptance basically provides recognition and acceptance by regulatory authorities, building control officers, insurers, and all the other stakeholders that will be involved in the project. It kind of, by having this cert, it's a smoother approval process, and it kind of reduces the barriers to adopting an offsite construction system for your project. Quality assurance, I think this is a massive one. It demonstrates that it's undergone rigorous testing, assessment, and quality assurance procedures to ensure its safety and reliable and performance. It basically gives confidence to the clients, developers, and contractors that we provide that regarding our quality and suitability of the construction method for their projects. The market credibility, it's the reputation of our system and the companies involved in its implementation. It signifies our kind of commitment to compliance and quality and innovation, which can attract other clients in the future and investors, and it just helps that. Risk reduction helps mitigate risks associated with adopting new methods, basically provides assurance and compliance with all the regulatory requirements. It stops the risk of project delays, disputes, and liabilities once everyone is happy with our system and understands it. What we find with market access, because of our 3D certificate, it has opened doors to us for other projects in Ireland and in the UK, showing of what we can deliver. It also, I find with the NSAI, the continuous improvement with the auditing structure that they have in place, and that we're constantly wanting to improve our system, look at new innovations and our detailing, working with other manufacturers and seeing what they do is always a massive benefit as well to ourselves. I'm just going to play a quick video here now, just showcasing what we do in the factory, but it'll move along pretty quick. So basically, it's just a video showcasing of what we do in MHI, and basically how the cold forming into panels, the panels get made to get normally we keep them at 1 ton to kind of then we put it on the floor, make up the frame of each module. As I said, we typically have 4 modules to one house. First fix M&E and all works that are completed, and jointing, fix M&E, painting work, joinery, and the bathrooms. So basically modules get wrapped. We install everything out to the wall tile channel. They get wrapped, QR coded, tagged, and then brought to site. So typically on site, we'd have 4 modules per house, 2 roof modules, basically get placed. We normally place 1 to 2 modules in a day. And then basically the external facade typically by the main contractor on site after. But as Eoin went on to earlier, we can get that done in the factory by using different facade systems. Okay, here's a typical process of in the factory. It's pretty much aligned with what Eoin was saying earlier with theirs. Once we get frozen GAs and so on from the design team, typically we'd have wall panel drawings created and wall panel files in a week. And basically we start in, so we have a 22-day process to when the module is wrapped and going out the door. We'd have a 1 day for installing the house, and then we've typically 13 days, but it's around 3 weeks to do the connections and test and commissioning, hand over the project, or hand over our element of the project. Okay, I suppose innovations that we've used above an MHI, we digitized the QA QC process. We're lucky enough when I went up back in 2019, there was a process of probably works completed for around 3 or 4 years where they'd done a lot of corrective actions, preventive actions, and built up their checklists to make their system work. So it was easy to just transfer all those checklists in over to BIM 360, which is kind of our Autodesk cloud solution, really. Basically, the benefits of that then were like we improved efficiency, like by streamlining workflows and reducing manual tasks. We're able to eliminate paper-based documentation. It led to faster turnarounds and reduced administrative burden, especially at the end of a project. Enhanced accuracy basically allowed for standardized data entry. We were able to automate the checklist as much as possible where the information was pre-filled where it could be. So there was less risk of human error associated. So basically we could pull data from it after. By a centralized data management system, just basically all information is in a single platform. It's organized, it's stored, it's easier to retrieve later on at the end of a project. Basic cloud-based solution, it enabled real-time collaboration, document sharing, communication, and greater transparency across the project. Real-time monitoring and reporting, we're able to just check trends, performance indicators, check it against KPIs. As I'll go on in a second, I'll show that we use it to track progress and so on. We're able to generate actionable insights and reports that for our subcontractors to clear off any issues that they'd raise. Standardized processes. It's basically standardized workflows, procedures, documentation formats. It just gives us a consistency around our quality management system, making sure that all hold points and stuff and checklists are completed. The compliance and audit readiness, it's just making sure that when we're coming in auditing, that it is a very seamless, that there's no like running around trying to find files or anything like that. Everything is in its location. You can see all the revision control behind it and everything like that as well. So it's very helpful that way. The other thing is the adaptability and scalability. By completing this, and by putting everything online, we're actually able to scale up and do more of a product because we're following a process. So their time is not taken doing kind of tasks that we can actually put them doing that's going to improve their utilization, really. That it's just, I see there in the Ukrainian project, we had at one stage, I think we had 3 live projects handed over at the one time where we were pulling certificates for. So that was always going to be hard in itself. I'm just keeping an eye on time now here as well. I suppose the progress tracking using QR codes, that is another thing that we've looked at above in MHI to kind of improve our system. Basically, it's QR code in each module, assigning different statuses to it, and then it exports out to a Power BI page, which we can track how our subcontractors are performing, how our labor force are performing at any one time. Basically, it kind of helps real-time monitoring of the situation. Like it kind of makes us allowed for better decision making. It can kind of highlight any delays or bottlenecks in the production process that can be quickly identified, addressed. It minimizes downtime and maximizes productivity. Enhanced traceability. We tend to, at the end of any project, we'd have a handover file for each module. We've all the checklists and information linked to that module. So basically, it helps us hand over the module or hand over the project at the end. Improved inventory management. That's just like we were able to assign how much material, how the quantity of material for every module. So it helped us prevent stockouts, overstocking, inventory discrepancies, or optimizing inventory levels and reducing carrying costs for the project by actually doing this. efficient maintenance and tracking. We've used it for like all our equipment in the factory is all QR code tagged, so we know when it needs to be certified, when it needs to be tested. We log all this online. We have all our standardized forms, our health and safety forms as well. It's pretty much typical of what we do in BAM anyway, but we just brought it up into MHI as well. The data that we've collected from this using the progress tracking, the QR codes, we're able to track how many man hours were per each module, how the basically of what each module cost us, what profit we made in each one, how many labor hours went into it, and so on. So that data is invaluable to us, and see how we can improve from project to project. It also enhances the customer satisfaction by they can simply go around, walk around the factory, scan the QR codes. It's linked to the BIM 360 system, so they can actually go and log on whenever they want and have a look at that. And that's, sorry for going quick there, Nina, and just looking at time. So thanks everybody. There's a couple of links online if anyone wants to watch. There's just longer videos. One would be Island Bridge. It just shows us installing the 5-story apartment block. It's like made up around 20 or 30 modules. So that'll be one to look at. And also we have our own company one as well if you want to have a look at it there. But if anyone, feel free to reach out to me if anyone wants to see or have a chat about anything. So any questions, I'll hand it back to you, Jamie.